Hey, it's been a minute. The Paris 2024 Summer Olympics are right around the corner, and I dropped a video talking about why no one wants to host the Olympics. But I kind of want to take a micro lens into Paris and what they're doing to reinvent the Olympics and how Paris is reinventing the Olympics. Make sure to leave a like on today's video and subscribe, as we are trying to hit 2,000 subscribers on this channel by the end of the year. So make sure you guys are subscribed, and let's get right into it.
These are the expenses for the last 3 Olympics in Tokyo, Rio, and London. And here's the total revenue generated from the last 3 Olympics.
Right, London's just a non-profit charity at this point.
For those cities. It's simple. The Olympics is not a good business. And for decades, the Olympics have been plagued with scandal after scandal, from corruption to human rights violations and insane cost overruns that have made many question whether it's even worth it.
Just let LA host it. Come on now. Just let them host it.
But that might be about to change. From July 26 to August 11, 2024, Paris will host the 33rd Olympiad, with 329 separate events happening over 19 days. What's interesting about this Olympics is that France is taking a different approach to the Games, aiming to reinvent the Summer Olympics by minimizing its environmental impact and keeping costs down.
Right. And I've heard a lot about their, I guess, environmental impact that they're trying to do. There's a video that I got recommended how they're spending like $1.5 billion to clean the river that runs through Paris because it's going to be used for like certain like water events, like kayaking. It does make a lot of sense. And apparently they're doing like a lot of water repurposing, water recycling
events in places as far as French Polynesia. But here's the problem with the Olympics. Many recent Olympics have built massive fancy stadiums to showcase their wealth and spend billions on all new facilities for very specific sports, which all too often are left unused after the games are through. A perfect example of this is the stadiums that have been abandoned for well over a decade now in Rio. So, Paris has opted to use existing stadiums instead and construct temporary structures in front of iconic landmarks. Like
this is the photo that's been going viral. Like this whole venue of having beach volleyball in front of the Eiffel Tower. Like that is insane, and it makes sense. Like you could prop this up, you could pull it down, tear it down in a way, minimizes like building an entire arena right in front of the Eiffel Tower. But if they had something similar to this in like other places, like where you could, I don't know, have like something in front of the Statue of Liberty, have something, obviously an event right in front of the Space Needle, maybe not like in a full arena, but that would be super cool. So
Eiffel Tower. They are only building 2 new permanent structures for the Games, plus the controversial Olympic Village, which, trust me, I'll get into in a bit. But the 2024 Games face massive challenges like security and a project to clean up the Seine River, to make it safe for athletes to swim in it for the first time in a century. But if everything goes according to plan...
Right. So nobody's been able to swim in this river for an entire century, 100+ years. And for some reason, they got the bid to host the Olympics. And they're like, you know what? I think now's the time that we should try and actually clean the river.
The event will be incredible. On July 26th, the opening ceremony will take place not in a stadium, but on the Seine River, with over 10,000 athletes parading down 6 kilometers of river on 90 boats. A first in
that must be a very stressful day before
in Olympic history.
Imagine
the
falling
opening ceremony will have over 300,000 spectators watching from the river banks, with 200,000 more from buildings overlooking the river. That's over 4 times more people than could fit in France's biggest stadium. So that's going to be really cool. But reinventing the Olympics will take more than just an opening ceremony. And that's where it starts to get interesting. Because in contrast to previous host cities in developing countries, Paris is starting with a huge advantage. France is a developed country, and Paris is a major city with a large amount of existing infrastructure. The city has already hosted the Olympics twice in
1900. They hosted it 124 years ago. I'm sure they have a lot of infrastructure left from then.
1900 and 1924.
And 100 years ago.
Although that was literally a century ago. Surprisingly, the city is even reusing a swimming pool from the 1924 Olympics. But what's even more shocking is that they plan to use a venue last used in the 1900 Olympics.
Ain't no way. There's no way that they were still torturing people back then.
River. Triathlon and marathon swimming events will have world-class athletes swimming
This
in
will
a
be
river
super
where it has
cool.
been forbidden for over 100 years. Seeing heavy rains often cause runoff from the region's sewage treatment plants upstream to enter the Seine, which until now has put any swimmer at risk of dangerous fecal bacteria like E. coli and Enterococci.
E. coli.
In 1990, Jacques Chirac, who was the mayor of Paris at the time, promised to clean up the river and pledged to swim in it in 1993. But it never ended up happening. The Olympic promises have been met with skepticism due to past failures, including as recently as last year. A test marathon in August 2023 was cancelled due to heavy rains, and there is a risk that the Olympic event
And that was August 6th, by the way. That would have been like in the middle of the Olympics. So you're telling me a year later that they've miraculously cleaned this entire river, or most of it. I can't wait until more controversy comes out about the Paris 2024 Olympics, where like they're gonna be like, oh yeah, all the triathletes, all the divers, you know, a handful of swimmers out there, yeah, they're all malaria now.
events could be postponed or cancelled in case of heavy rains. Surfrider Foundation, an environmental non-profit, has been testing the Seine for over 6 months
Right,
for
non-profit from
concentrations of
London.
fecal bacteria, and only 1 of 14 samples taken showed safe levels of the bacteria. With the city shutting down river access to prepare for the games, the organization asked in an open letter for continued river access to keep testing the river.
Right, this seems like a great
But
idea.
some major infrastructure projects have just been completed that are likely to massively improve the river water and make sure that swimmers don't end up sick. First, a huge underground basin near the Austerlitz train station will store 50,000 cubic meters of rainwater, or enough to fill 20 Olympic-sized swimming pools.
Why?
Opened in May 2024 at a cost of 90 million euros. It will prevent dirty water from entering the river, pouring excess water into the sewer system for treatment. Around 10 kilometers
That makes a lot of sense. Instead of it going into the river, it goes into these, you know, giant Olympic-sized swimming pools and then just fills up and then gets treated after that. That makes a lot of sense now.
upstream from Paris, a rainwater decontamination station opened in a nearby suburb in April. It can hold 45,000 cubic meters of
Okay,
water,
that's only
or
5
18 Olympic swimming pools worth, and cleans 700 liters a second before releasing it
Wow,
into
okay.
the Marne River, which flows into the Seine. Costing 53 million euros, the major project uses a series of filters before cleaning the water with UV lights to kill any remaining bacteria. Aside from these massive projects, France is also tackling smaller issues like correcting 10,000 faulty branch pipes leaking dirty water into rivers. Another problem are the barges floating on the Seine. See, these barges, which include floating restaurants and houseboats, dump their raw sewage into the river. Despite some
I don't want to be swimming in no fecal matter.
financial assistance from the government, barge owners need to shell out thousands to connect their boats to the sewage network. In total, 250 barges need to be connected to the city's sewer network to stop this from happening, and as of March, 20 still need to be connected. So it's no small task to clean up the river and make it
Ew,
safe.
that
Overall,
just-
France is
oh.
investing 1.4 billion euros to make parts of the Seine
Wow.
and Marne
Wow.
rivers swimmable again. Despite Surfrider's concerns, the government will test the river water every morning at 3 AM to ensure the river is safe for the Olympic swimming events. And to demonstrate just how clean the water is, the mayor of Paris will swim in the Seine on June 23rd. If
Right. It's gonna be one of those things where like she swims, she doesn't know she's sick. I don't know if you guys ever saw like when Obama like drank like the water from Flint, Michigan. He just kind of goes, just like a nice little yummy.
the water is not clean enough by then, it will be postponed to the 30th. Or at least that was the plan. On May 27th, a report by the Pesticide Action Network Europe revealed that Europe's waterways are contaminated with trifluoroacetic acid, which is a so-called forever chemical. The Seine cleanup is only focused on removing 2 types of bacteria and completely ignores chemical pollution. So far, there has been no official response to the report, so the river swim still seems to be on the calendar. We'll have to wait and see. But this isn't the only major challenge
Right.
facing France is taking on this summer. The Olympics are a massive event, and the 33rd Olympiad will be the largest event ever held in France. Given the number of
Or like
terrorist
the
attacks in
world?
France over the past decade, France is heavily investing in security to keep spectators and athletes safe. And that's not cheap. For the past 2 decades, security costs for the Olympics have been well over $1 billion, and this year will likely be costly as well. France will be deploying 45,000 police officers during the opening ceremony and 35,000 for the rest of the games.
Right. Okay, here's my thought. We've probably seen enough of that, like, oil type things, you know, the oil protest. I guarantee you, we're going to see at least one oil protest during this Olympic.
It has even asked neighboring countries to send 2,000 more officers as reinforcements. Police officers are being given a €1,900 bonus to work during the games, further driving up costs. To make matters worse, garbage collectors, transport workers, and rail workers have striked in recent months to obtain similar benefits. With transport strikes a common annoyance during French summers, the government has given in to many demands to avoid causing a scene while the whole world is watching. And like many Olympics before it, France is keen to show a sparkling, clean vision of itself to the world. And that means removing thousands of homeless, including migrants, and moving them to housing in other cities in France, or even paying for them to fly back to their country.
Hey, here's a one-way ticket back to where you came from. Don't give America any ideas, okay? I do not want to be sent back. I'm Mexican, I get these jokes, okay? But I'm not going to be sent back to Seattle, okay?
This strategy has freed up thousands of hotel rooms that usually temporarily house the homeless, fueling criticism of the government's actions.
Right. Well, at least they found a
But the intense
solution,
demand is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for hotels
LA is
and
definitely
property
gonna need
owners,
one.
driving unprecedented greed. 15 million visitors are expected to stay in the city's 85,000 accommodations, and hotel room and Airbnb rates are skyrocketing. According to one study, hotel room prices have shot up 226%, going from $169 per night in July 2023 on average to $699 during the Olympics. While the
That's like maybe an economy flight. And you mean to tell me that's one night in a hotel that might not have AC? I at least hope they throw in complimentary breakfast. I would hope they do that.
The price hikes are likely temporary. Other effects of the games may be more permanent. The Olympic Village, which I mentioned before, is being built in the neglected suburb of Seine and is being touted as a major investment in the area that will be converted into housing for 6,000 new residents after the games. But some existing residents worry the housing will simply drive gentrification. Only 1/4 of its units will be turned into public housing, although more will be rented out as affordable housing. But the rest will be sold on the housing market for over €7,000 per square meter, well beyond the reach of existing residents.
That's
the
good.
North Paris suburb of Seine is also receiving other investments for the Olympics, like the newly built aquatic center, which will be a permanent structure. The area will also benefit from a massive expansion of transit. Metro Line 11 is being extended east into Seine when the extension opens in June. Metro Line 14 is being extended south to Orly Airport and north to a new station within walking distance of the Olympic Village.
That
this
better
station,
be open.
Saint-Denis-Pleyel, will open in June 2024 with the extension of Metro Line 14. It will eventually become a transit hub for 3 new metro lines, 2 of which will open in 2026. What's more, a pedestrian bridge just connected the station to the RER-D Regional Express train station and the Stade de France Stadium, where several competitions and the closing ceremony will be held.
Woo!
2 more transit projects, the extension of the T3B tram in April and the extension of the RER-E across Paris to La Défense in May.
I was so confused, like when I was in Boston on transit, and that's like probably the best transit in America. I would be really confused here. I'm going, yeah, okay, the T3B, right, we'll take that, and then also the RER-E, okay.
Have further improved connections across the metropolitan area. Despite these major investments in the transit network, there has been criticism of transport policies for the Olympics, like the massive price hike of metro tickets. During the Olympics, the price of one ticket will nearly double, going from €2 to €4. The transport agency says the increased fare will cover the cost of running more trains to meet demand, but considering the original plan was to make public transport free for Olympic ticket holders, it seems to
Getting scammed. That's literally it. They're just getting scammed. They were potentially going to get free metro for the entirety of the Olympics, but they didn't even cut costs. They increased it. They doubled it.
Many like a greedy cash grab. Thankfully, locals with monthly passes can avoid the price hikes, and there will be other ways around the increased pricing. But honestly, it might be a deliberate decision to discourage people from using public transport. See, the Paris city government is running a campaign for people to work from home during the Olympics and avoid trains when possible. And it might be working. Although a recent survey revealed that 70% of Paris region residents said they would not leave Île-de-France region during the Olympics. 30% said they would ask to work from home. The government has also created a site to inform people about changes that could affect their commute, as some stations will be closed, some roads.
Hey boss, I'm so sorry for showing up 4 hours late. I was waiting in line for the train. Please don't fire me.
Will be blocked off, and some areas will be off limits to those without tickets to an event or a special pass. The event is also expected to generate massive traffic, so 185 kilometers of road will be Olympic lanes reserved for athletes, Olympic delegations, journalists, emergency vehicles, and public transport. But the good news is that the city has added 55 kilometers of bike lanes to make every Olympic venue accessible by bike, alleviating the massive spike in traffic on the metro and road networks.
Teslas in France.
They're adding 10,000 bike parking places near the venues and an extra 3,000 bikes to the Rally bike sharing service. So all of this infrastructure must be costing a fortune, right? Well, yes. Surprisingly, the Paris Olympics are said to be the cheapest in decades, compared to the insane cost of the Beijing Olympics, but also more recent figures like London, Rio, and Tokyo. While not massively cheaper, the Paris Olympics is expected to cost around 10 billion euros, but it will also have major economic benefits estimated at between 6.7 and 11.4 billion euros, as 15 million expected visitors will be spending money on hotels, restaurants, and more. According to the World Tourism Organization, France was the #1 tourism destination in 2023, with over 100 million tourists visiting the country. These numbers were helped by the Rugby World Cup and will likely climb even higher in 2024 thanks to the Olympics. But beyond the temporary influx in visitors, the Olympics will bring massive attention to Paris, especially as the city's major landmarks will be on full display. In fact, all of France will get some attention, as some competitions are being held in other French cities. Lyon, Bordeaux, and a handful of other cities will host football matches, while Marseille hosts the sailing competition, which makes sense because Paris isn't exactly on the sea. And the surfing competition will be held in Tahiti, literally on the other side of
French
the earth
Polynesia
from Paris. Tahiti is part of French Polynesia, which is technically part of France, so this is an interesting move, but it makes complete sense.
That's pretty
So at this
cool.
point, it's pretty clear that the millions of visitors and thousands of athletes traveling to the games will give the games a huge carbon footprint. After hosting a major climate conference in 2015, Paris is keen to show that it cares about the environment. It aims to make these the greenest games yet, emitting half of the 3.5 million tons of CO2 emitted by the 2012 London Olympics. They will also purchase carbon credits to offset the remaining emissions, although these credits are controversial and it's not clear if they actually do anything. Still, Paris is finding clever ways to reduce
Don't worry, just put the CO2 on credit.
emissions. See, many major events use diesel generators to provide electricity. These are convenient because the event is temporary, but they cause unnecessary pollution. Instead, Paris is installing special electrical infrastructure to connect temporary venues to the national power grid. It's also ensuring everything is powered by wind and solar energy. Much of the Olympic Village will be made out of wood, and materials will be shipped in by river barge, driving down CO2 emissions of construction. The aquatic center has been built with wood and is designed with a curved roof and a shallower pool to reduce energy needs. Some buildings in the Olympic Village will feature geothermal heating and cooling, avoiding the use of air conditioning altogether. During the Olympics, these apartments will act like dormitories for athletes with temporary beds made out of cardboard. To save
Right. I remember, hold on. I got it. These beds are insane.
With temporary
That's your bed. That's the bed. And you get a fan. This is like living on a budget in New York City, but you're like one of the best athletes in the world, and this is probably going to be a very humbling experience for a lot of them.
Beds made out of cardboard. To save room, the kitchens won't be installed until after the Olympics, as the athletes will have a 3,500 seat canteen for their meals. What's insane is that the Olympic Village will serve over 600,000 meals per day. The village has been carefully designed to the last detail, with close attention paid to accessibility, making it easy to navigate by wheelchair and making space for seeing eye dogs. And there's a good reason why. After the Olympics end on August 11th, the Paralympic Games will begin
Right.
on August 28th for another 10 days. The Paralympics are basically the Olympics for athletes with disabilities. That means the village needs to accommodate these athletes, as does the city. Paris has upgraded nearly 2,000 bus stops to be wheelchair accessible and aims to quadruple the number of wheelchair accessible taxis.
Wow,
and that's key
that's
because
impressive.
Paris sucks in general for accessibility, with
Right. They just showed this giant 2-level set of stairs.
only one metro line fully accessible
They got some
by
room for
wheelchair. Some metro stations require you to literally go down 6 flights of stairs to access trains. But as I explained in the Why Paris is Strangely Designed video, the city's metro network is over a century old, making it costly to upgrade. Still, despite Paris being such an old city, one very modern threat could derail the event: a cyber attack.
Oh, I was like,
During
why
the
did...
2018 Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang, South Korea, the Wi-Fi network and ticketing system went down on the night of the opening ceremony. Ever since, cyber attacks have posed a major threat to the Games, and Paris Olympic organizers are bracing for massive cyber attacks. They expect 3.6 to 5.4 billion hacking attempts during the event, and are preparing with war games to simulate cyber attack scenarios and identify potential vulnerabilities. What's shocking is who will probably be behind.
See, this is like a part of the world that like nobody knows, because there was that recent like cyber cloud like outage like that threw the entire world off if you weren't sleeping. So I could only imagine what like the Paris Olympics are going to look like, especially having like nearly 5 to 6 billion attempted attacks.
In this summer's attacks, as state actors like Russia, Iran and North Korea are thought to be the only ones capable of carrying out the largest cyber attacks. With Russia barred from officially participating in this year's games, they may seek revenge in a cyber attack. In fact, they have already been accused of carrying out a disinformation campaign to undermine the event. All in all, France is pulling out all the stops to make this event a success and address past criticisms. For one, past Olympics have been rife with corruption. The head of
fair.
Bristol's Olympic Committee was recently handed a 30-year prison sentence for bribery related to the 2016 Rio Olympics. France has
What?
tried to get ahead of the issue by raiding the Olympic Organization Committee's office last summer to find evidence of corruption for 2 corruption investigations related to Olympic contracts and conflicts of interest. Still, the organizers have been criticized for a lot of their decisions, like the obscene ticket prices. While the president of the organizing committee promised cheap tickets, in reality they were not so easy to access. In spring of 2023, the first batch of cheap tickets, which were as low as 24 euros, went on sale. But many tickets went for much more, causing widespread public criticism. The
Right.
opening ceremony tickets cost as much as 2,700 euros if you weren't lucky enough to buy the cheaper tickets before they sold out. The 10 million tickets are expected to draw in 1.24
That's
billion euros,
crazy.
which is about a third of the game's expected revenue, if they can sell them all. So will this summer's games be a success? There certainly is a lot of momentum
That's so
behind
much
it,
money.
but we will have to see. The Tokyo Olympics, which took place in 2021, were the least watched Olympic Games ever in the US. Still, the Tokyo Olympics didn't
How?
allow spectators.
How? Oh, I'm not gonna lie, I know why. Because when we're going to bed, they're all happening because of the time difference, right? It's better for them to be eastward bound instead of western bound.
Due to the ongoing pandemic, dampening enthusiasm, so Paris can probably come back from that low point. Major corporations are already spending billions to advertise during the games, which could be a good sign. But let's see how all of this turns out. But that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yes, Nationers, that is how Paris is reimagining the Olympics. Make sure to leave a comment down below on what event you guys are going to be watching and what country you think is going to win this year's Summer Olympics. And most importantly, Nationers, as we're on the road to 2,000 subscribers, subscribe!